So, today we're gonna have a look at the entire timeline of Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation. And without wasting any time, let's start from the beginning. Alright, more than 100,000 years ago, the age of the gods of ancient times began. Then, 20,000 to 10,000 years ago, the first generation dragon god was born. They tear down the barriers between worlds and destroy multiple worlds, and all races flee to the human world. The 5 dragon generals betray the dragon god, and their battle ends in a mutual defeat. The dragon god sends his son Orsted into the future to defeat Hitogami. Demon Dragon King Laplace, who is one of the 5 dragon generals, is given a mission by the dragon god. The dragon god is killed by Hitogami. Laplace somehow escapes the collapsing dragon world and begins to wander the human world as the 2nd generation dragon god. The legend states that all worlds but the human world were destroyed when the dragon god died, but the void world still exists, where Hitogami was trapped by dragon god. Then, 10,000 to 8,000 years ago, the Age of Chaos takes place. The different races in the human world were mixed together and struggle. Eventually, each race starts to live in different parts of the world. Only the humans and demons continue their battle. Laplace, who became the 2nd generation dragon god, begins studying techniques and spells for the sake of defeating Hitogami, with the goal of one day teaching them to Orsted, who was sent to the future. Then, about 7,000 years ago, the 1st generation human-demon war begins. Then 6,000 years ago, the first great human-demon war comes to an end when the hero Arusu leads his 6 comrades to defeat the 5 demon lords and demon world emperor Kishirika. Later, about 5,500 years ago, humans wage war on other races and each other for a period of about 500 years. Then, 5,000 years ago, Kishirika revives and the start of the 2nd Great Human-Demon War, which was led by Kishirika herself. During this war, the demons ally with the beast race and sea race and corner the humans. Then, 4,200 years ago, Golden Knight Aldebaran, the fighting god, appears and turns the tide of the war. At the very end, his attack punches a huge hole in the Great Continent, forming a sea and splitting it into the Central Continent and Demon Continent. The fighting god was a disciple of Hitogami. His final battle was against Laplace and caused Laplace's soul to split exactly in half, causing him to lose his memories and be split into 2 individuals. The technique god Laplace, who seeks to defeat a god, and the demon god Laplace, who hates humans. At the same time, the fighting god armor was broken and fell to the bottom of the ocean. Then, 4,200 to 1,000 years ago was a time of peace. Humans gradually segregate demons onto the demon continent and blockade it. The demons struggle for resources and their population drops. 1,000 years ago, demon god Laplace is born. He unites the demons and subjugates the demon continent. 500 years ago, the Laplace War begins. Laplace persuades the sea race and beast race and attacks the central continent. Laplace quickly gains control of the north and south part and invades the west from both directions. About 400 years ago, the 7 heroes persuade the sea race to lift the blockade of the sea and ally with the beast race by holding hostage the children of their heads of families. The last remaining human country, the Asura Kingdom, put all their effort into a final assault. The 7 heroes led by the Miris Holy Order of Knights and the beast race in an attack on Laplace's stronghold. In the final battle, 4 of the 7 heroes die, leaving dragon god Ulpen, the 1st generation north god Kalman, and the armored dragon king Perugius. But Laplace's close allies were all annihilated and Laplace was sealed. Ruijerd Spurda was also a part of this war, and he aids the heroes during the final battle. So now we have the Armored King years, because the end of Laplace War marked the start of the Armored Dragon calendar. So from now, we are going to look at the events through the Armored King calendar. In the year 330, in the winter, Orsted's time loop starts and he appears in a nameless forest in the northern part of the central continent. Then, in the fall of year 373, Roxy Migurdia is born. In the year 387, Roxy Migurdia leaves her village. In the fall of year 388, Paul Greyrat is born. In the spring of year 390, Zenith Greyrat is born. In year 400, Paul Greyrat leaves home at the age of 12. In the year 401, Roxy enrolls in Renoa Magic University. In the year 405, Eris Boreas Greyrat is born. In year 407, Rudius Greyrat is born. Sylphie is born in the fall in the same year. The holy beast in the Great Forest is also born at the same time. Linnea Dedoldia and Procina Adoldia were also born in the same time year. In year 408, Rudius learns the written language. He begins to read books. In year 409, relying on a magic textbook, Rudius begins to use magic. He notices that his total amount of mana is being increased. During this time, he also learns chantless magic. In year 410, Rudius meets Roxy and begins to get taught magic by her. He also begins to get taught swordsmanship by Paul. In year 412, Rudius is led out of the house by Roxy. He becomes a Water Saint class magician. Roxy goes off on her own, and Rudius meets Sylphie for the first time and thinks he is a boy. In year 413, Rudius notices Sylphie is a girl. Zenith and Lilia become pregnant. Rudius becomes respected by Lilia. Some months later, Aisha and Norn are born. In the year 414, Rudius is forcibly sent to the house of Boreas Greyrat in the Fitoa region. There, he meets Ghislaine and Eris. In year 415, Rudius notices the red orb floating in mid-air on the top floor of the Boreas estate. Then, in year 417, Rudius is given Aqua Hartia as a present on his 10th birthday. The next day, the teleport incident occurs in the Fitoa region. Rudius and Eris are teleported to the Demon Continent. Sylphie is teleported to the Asura Kingdom. Nanahoshi is summoned to this human world from her original world. Roxy heads to the Demon Continent in search of Rudius and joins up with Elinalis and Talhand. Rudius receives his first advice from Hitogami. He meets Rigurd Spurred and begins efforts to redeem the Spurred tribe. He also founds the adventurer party Dead End with Eris and Rigurd. Meanwhile, Sylphie becomes Princess Ariel's companion as the guardian known as Fitz. Then, in year 418, Rudius accepts the Eye of Foresight from Demon Emperor Kishirika Kishirisu. He saves captured beast race children and the holy beast from smugglers. Saurus Boreas Greyrat is held responsible and killed for failures after the teleport incident. Rudius meets Geese, and he passes the Great Forest's rainy season in the beast race village. Rudius also reunites and reconciles with Paul in the holy country Milis. Roxy Migurdia and the rest of her party meets with her parents for the first time in decades. Princess Ariel is driven out of the kingdom of Asura. Then in the year 419, Rudius reunites with Aisha and Lilia in the kingdom of Shirone. He is confined by Pax and saved by Zenoba. Rudius is almost killed by the dragon god Orsted at the Red Dragon Mountains. Sylphie enrolls in Renoa Magic University along with Princess Ariel and Luke. In the year 420, Rudius returns to Fitoa and has his first time with Eris. She parts ways with him the next morning to train at the Holy Land of the Sword. Roxy meets Kishirika in the Demon Continent and thanks her, and also finds the localization of Zenith Greyrat in a labyrinth in the Bergerit continent. Elinalis Dragon Road travels with the Demon King Buddy Gardy to give the news of Rudius Greyrat. Meanwhile, Roxy and Tallhand travel to Milis to give the news to Paul. After the departure of Eris, Rudius decides to travel to the northern part of the central continent to find his mother Zenith. On the way, he meets the party called Counter Arrow. Rudius and Counter Arrow stop at Rosenberg. One day after, Counter Arrow proposed to Rudius to do a quest with them. The next day, they set off to Lake Kukuru. After 3 days of travel, they arrive at night and Rudius saves the party by killing the grizzly bears. After another 3 days of travel, they came back to Rosenberg. During 3 months, Rudius does sport exercise to maintain and join numerous parties in order to make his name well known. One day, he sets off with Counter Arrow to Golgao Ruins. After 3 days of travel, they arrive. Counter Arrow saves Rudius. After 3 days of travel, they are back to Rosenberg. After 3 months, it's been 6 months since Rudius has been there. He heals a child during work. He saw Counter Arrow, who announces the death of Mimir and disappearance of Sarah. Rudius arrives at the place of disappearance at night, fight the buffalo, then the Trent, and saved Sarah. In the year 421, 6 months after saving Sarah, it's been 1 year since Rudius is at Rosenberg and he becomes famous as Quagmire in the northern part of the central continent. One day, he discusses with Sarah after a mission who asks him to accompany her to buy a weapon, in other words, a date. The next day, they have a date, and Rudius discovers that he has become impotent. Sarah runs away. Rudius drinks for the first time, strikes Soldier, who then brings him to a pleasure house. The next morning, Sarah slaps Rudius, who decides to follow Step Leader, who leaves Rosenberg for dungeons. Sarah tries but fails to find Rudius in order to make some excuse. Rudius and Step Leader go to the third biggest city of Neris, Yunranza and Kelrion at the edge of the Renoa kingdom. Then, in the year 422, Rudius, Step Leader, Rod Knight, Iron Cluster Core, the Drunkard's Nonsense travel to kill a red worm, but Rudius manages to do it alone. Rudius became even more famous thanks to this, and there is a theater piece about it. Elinalis Dragonroad finds Rudius and tells him the news about his mother. 1 week later, he receives an invitation to become a special student from Renoa Magic University's vice principal, Genus, and Hitogami advises him to go there. 3 months later, he heads toward the university after waiting for the snow to thaw. 1 month later, he enrolls in Renoa Magic University. During his first day, he has a chance meeting with Silent Fitz. He meets Linnea Dedoldia, Persina Adoldia, and Cliff Grimoire. He reunites with Zenoba. He is unjustly accused of being a panty thief, but Silent Fitz saves him. 1 month later, Silent Fitz asks him to join his research on teleportation. The day later, Zenoba starts his training under Rudius, but it's too hard for him. 1 month later, Zenoba buys Julie to make statues for him, since he can't do it himself. 1 month later, Rudius, with the help of Zenoba, kidnaps Linnea and Persina in order to punish them for breaking Roxy's statue. But he frees them the next day, and they start calling him boss. Elinalis and Cliff become lovers. Demon Lord Bodyguardi invades and is defeated by Rudius. In the Renoa Magic University, Rudius meets Nanahoshi again, and after learning her truth, he decides to help her. In the year 423, Rudius discovers that Silent Fitz is actually Sylphie. He and Sylphie become lovers. Soon, he buys and prepares a house and marries Sylphie. Aisha and Norn settle into Sharia. Aisha becomes his maid. Norn enrolls in Renoa Magic University and moves into the dorm. For the first time, he ignores Hitogami's advice and goes to the continent of Begarit with Elinalis in order to rescue his mother. During their rescue mission, Paul dies and Zenith is rescued. He reunites with Roxy after a long time. Soon, he also marries Roxy and his first daughter Lucy is born. In year 424, Rudius becomes a Water King class magician. Meanwhile, Elinalis and Cliff gets married. Then, in the year 425, formation of the Non-Grey Rat Public Fan Club takes place. Rinia and Persina graduate. Rudius becomes a 4th-year student, and Nanahoshi finally manages to summon a watermelon from Earth. Rudius goes to the Sky Fortress to ask Armored Dragon King Perigeus about treating Zenith. He he goes to the demon continent to ask Kishirika about how to treat Nanahoshi's drying disease. He fights the immortal demon lord Atofe. Later, he also learns of Hitogami's plans after his meeting with future Rudius, and he disposes of the mouse carrying the magic stone disease. Later, he is forced into battling Orsted by Hitogami, and with the help of Zenoba and Cliff, he creates the magic armor. During this time, he reunites with Eris. In their battle, Orsted defeats Rudius and he becomes Orsted's subordinate. Soon, Rudius also marries Eris. He summoned the holy beast from the great forest and named him Leo. Orsted orders him to guard Princess Ariel, who ascends to the throne of Asura. In the year 426, Clive Grimoire and Lara Greyrat is born. In the year 427, Linnea and Persina return to Sharia. Zenoba briefly returns to Shirone with Rudius and company and becomes Orsted's subordinate. During this time, Ars Greyrat is also born. In the year 428, Cliff and Zenoba graduate from Renoba Magic University. Rudius begins to gather allies to prepare for Laplace's reincarnation. In the year 429, Rudius also graduates. Cliff returns to Melicion with Rudius and company. Sighart Greyrat is born in the same year, and Perugius gives him the second name Saladin. In the year 430, the last battle against Hitogami's apostles in Beheril Kingdom takes place. Geese Nucadia is killed in this battle. In the year 431, Lily Greyrat and Christina Greyrat are born, and soon Rigurd and Norn gets married. In the year 432, Luicilia Superdia is born. In the year 433, Rudius and Zenoba build a doll that looks like Nanahoshi, and Kalman III takes Sighart Greyrat as his disciple. In the year 434, Rudius and his family goes on a vacation to the Milis continent. In the year 436, Eris, Orsted, and Kalman III go to the Holy Land of the Sword to meet the new sword god Gino Brits. In the year 439, Aisha Greyrat and Ars Greyrat start a relationship. In the year 441, Rudius sees a future where his descendants seal Hitogami. In the year 442, Lucy Greyrat and Clive Grimoire are engaged. In the year 447, Sighart Greyrat leaves the house to help Pax Jr. In the year 459, Zenith Greyrat dies. In the year 479, Eris Greyrat dies. Then in the year 481, Rudius Greyrat dies. So, there is a lot of information that we were not able to provide in this video, and that's because we simply don't know about it. But when we get a brief summary on all the major events, we will surely make a better updated video on the complete timeline of Mushoku Tensei. But for now, this is all that we have got in this video.